Hello there, and welcome back to this Projects and Enterprise Java course. So last time we went over setting up our application to the database, and today we're actually going to be taking a look at essentially using that our now hooked up to a database application to write our account system logic. So let's do this. So first of all, let's go to user DAO here. And what we're going to need to do is do public list user get user by name. We're going to need this method here and string name. Let's import list. All right, there we go. All right, and here what we're going to go ahead and do is do query user equals session dot create query and here we're going to be using Hibernate query language from user where name equals and then name. There we go. All right. So here essentially, let's go ahead and import query here. So here essentially we're creating a, and also I forgot to add a name here. There we go. All right. So now we're essentially creating a query. What is this? Is this deprecated? What? Since when is it deprecated? It must be a recent deprecation. Okay, so apparently it is deprecated. Instead, let's just do this here. List user query equals session.create query. And then here we're just going to do dot set parameter name. Let's set it to name. And then just do dot, whoops. And then just do dot list. All right, there we go. Let's, why is it not formatting correctly? Okay. Do it like this. There we go. Okay, so essentially here, all we're doing is instead of, before I was thinking when I did it, or at least when I did it before, what I actually did was what did I do? I, had it on different lines essentially, so I created the query and then I would set the parameter and then I would just get query.list. But apparently this is the way you're supposed to do it now. So this is the way Hibernate wants you to do it now. Now that query is deprecated. All right, well now I'm actually getting the type safety warning, so I guess we could infer generic arguments. Again, that wouldn't really, can't really do that, can you, on a method call? So I guess let's just remove that. Would that make it all good? While we're on that note, we can probably, yeah, okay. All right, let's just keep it as is and then just return users. There we go. Okay, so yeah, I know it's an unchecked exception. We'll keep it that way. All right, there we go. Essentially, we're just using Hibernate SQL query language here. And so we're just doing from user. And if you're wondering why we're using user as the database name, so in SQL, if we were just using an SQL statement, we would do, select all from users, since the table name is users. We would do from users, where name equals name. In Hibernate, though, you actually use the name of the class and not the name of the table. So that's why we're using user here and not users. Since the class name is user, it'll understand that user actually means users. So just, that's one of the things of a, Hibernate query language. All right, there we go. And so here when we do where name equals and then, colon name, this is just because that's how we set a parameter in Hibernate query language. So we just do colon name and then dot set parameter name. So this will just put this name here that we enter right here, and then this will return back. We do dot list just to return back the list, And so that's what we get. That's what we return. Pretty simple stuff. All right, so now let's actually go to our login action here. And here in our validate method, let's first of all delete this since we don't really need it, do we? Well, we'll keep the system out println, but we will delete that. There we go. And here, what we'll actually do is we'll do user DAO, DAO equals new user DAO. There we go. Now we'll do if user dot username dot, we'll actually do string utils dot is empty user dot get username. Then we'll do add field error user dot username, and the error message is username cannot be blank. Okay, so essentially here with this validation, this is personally actually really nice in struts 2. So it actually allows us to create very simple validation without much. So in Spring, you actually do have to do a whole separate thing in order to use validation. In struts, it's actually very simple. So we just have to do this add field error, and it'll automatically add validation to our view. Well, actually, not just to our view, but to our action as well. And so we'll see here in a second exactly what this does. Let me actually go ahead and show you, because I think it's really cool how in order to just add validation, you just have to do user.username, and username cannot be blank. And even inside the actual view itself, it'll automatically add, well, in the JSP file, it'll add the error to the correct field. So let's actually go ahead and actually test this out here. So let's go localhost 8080 social network. So now in username, if we try to put a blank username here and submit, okay, well that is odd. Oh, right, okay. So right now it actually doesn't work because in our struts.xml file here, essentially what happens is it will actually return. Where did my action go? There it is. Whenever we do add field error, it's actually going to return an error of type input. So here we just return success. It's actually going to return input. So here in our struts.xml file, we actually have to map the result name equals input to slash and this is going to be index.jsp. There we go. All right. So now we will actually go ahead. Yeah. We will actually go ahead and run this. Oh, no, it'll update itself. Hopefully. There we go. So now we can go to social network. And now if we try to submit here, we will actually get this error right here, username cannot be blank. So I think personally that is actually very cool. It just does it all for us. And essentially, the reason we actually had an error there was because, let me go back to login action here. Whenever we do add field error, it returns back to the XML file a result of input. So essentially, input is actually one of the results that we can return. Well, I mean, we can return pretty much any result, but one of the built-in results, sort of, that is often used. And when we do return it, it actually signifies that there's an error in the input. So before, when we returned it, whoops, it saw we had input, but we didn't actually have any mapping for the result of input. So what should we do if we get input? And so in result, it actually just gave us that we couldn't find what to do. That's why we had the error. Here, after we mapped input, it now goes back to index.jsp and automatically adds on top of our username field here, it'll add an error, username cannot be blank. So that is actually pretty cool. And then we can also style that. Well, I mean, Yeah, we can style that by just inspecting element and then taking a look at the class of username cannot be blank, and then adding a CSS for that. So if you want to do that, that is how we would do that essentially. All right. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go ahead and go back to our login action. Write the rest of our login. What are we gonna write the rest? The rest of our login code. Yeah, login logic. There we go. Okay, so if string utility is empty. Now let's do the same exact thing for password as well. Okay, well actually let's not do that for password. Maybe the user doesn't want to have a password. We're not too worried with security here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's move this DAO down here. Let's do DAO.get user by name, user.get username. There we go. Okay, so now that we've done this, we can go ahead and do if, wait, no, it's going to be list users equals, there we go. Okay, and then here we do if users dot is empty. We do add field error user dot username no user found, and then finally we'll do another one, and then here we're actually going to return. We might as well return after any of these, since that just essentially means that we did something wrong. We entered the incorrect information, and then here we do if users dot get 0. And remember, it can't actually be empty, so there has to be user 0, since if it is empty, it'll actually return right here. If users.get0.get password equals user.get password. Yeah, and then add a exclamation mark here. So essentially, if the two passwords do not equal, then we're going to add field error and user.password. And the error message is going to be incorrect password. All right, there we go. Okay, so now that we have that done, that should be good to go. All right, so let's go ahead and actually make sure that this works. Let's run this on server. Give it a second to start up here. All right, there we go. There we go. And now we can go ahead and go to our user DAO application. Well, no, not our user DAO. Right here, we'll just go to social network. There we go. And here, let's do username. I don't know. Let's just say man password UI. And we're actually going to get an error. There we go. So no user found. So it can't find the username, which makes sense. If we now do our seni, remember, and if we actually go to our terminal here, I have to do this. Use social network and select all for, whoops, not 8. All from users. We actually have one user here from last time. And if we now do our seni without a password, so let's just put some random password here, we're actually going to get an error, incorrect password. And then if we put the correct password, utility, it'll actually give us you have logged in, and it will actually work. So yeah, there we go. So that's pretty cool stuff. So now one last thing that we're going to do is, now login action, there we go. First of all, we're going to return here if we have an error there. And then next, we're going to do this dot user equals user, users dot get 0. Might as well. Okay, and then also what we're going to do is add a session here. So we're going to put user into session. So the only thing I'm really thinking about is whether I should do the session now or leave it for next when we're actually going to need the session. Since right now we don't really need it for any reason, we can just put the user, keep the user in the request, or not the request, the value stack of struts2. Yeah, you know what? For now, let's keep it in the value stack. Later on, when we're going to be implementing friend functionality, we're going to need to put it in session as well. But for now, we can keep it in value stack. But essentially, we already have our login application all written. Now we just login action all written. Now we just need to add the registration action. But I will in fact save that for the next episode, where we're going to take a look at doing that as well. So yeah, so that's it for this episode. We essentially got login done here, and we took a look at Spring validate. What Spring? Where does Spring come from? Struts2 validation. Personally, I think that the validation, the way it works, is actually very cool. You know, that you don't have to actually put anything here. And if you're wondering exactly how it works, you can take a look at the model flow. The one thing I didn't really talk about was how is how it actually knows which. Let me go back here. Whoops, what? No. There we go. Is how it knows which text field here to actually put the error. So here we put the error before we had the error on top of username. So on top of here, and now we have error on top of password. So in order to sort of the way it decides which field to put the error at is right here. We actually set, so we get a user.username. It'll understand that this is, let me actually open up the index.jsp file. So here we have a key user.username, so it knows that we have to put it here. And here we have a key that we're going to add field error user.password, and that'll correspond to this user.password field here and put it on top of that. So that's essentially how it knows where exactly to put the error. So that's just something to know. But yeah, okay, so now that we got that done, that is essentially all for this lesson. I'll see you next time where we're going to tackle registration. It should be a little bit simpler since we already essentially, it's just going to be the same thing as login, just with a couple differences. So that should be pretty simple stuff. But yeah, I'll see you there. Till soon. Goodbye.